Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 39th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. On today's episode, we talk to the incredible actor, producer, and all-around great human being. His name is Iota'kernatenion Thomas Beaton. So without further ado, let's hop in episode 39 of the Little Thespian Podcast. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 39th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. On today's episode, we have actor, producer, and all-around great human being, the amazing Iota'kernatenion Thomas Beaton. How are you doing? It's been a while, man. I'm glad to have you on the 39th episode.
Thank you. I'm doing well. Before, like I was saying before we started the recording, doing a lot better since we're catching the tail end of the pandemic. Hopefully, as people are starting to get vaccinated and things are slowly and surely starting to open up again, I think things are going to get a lot better.
Yeah, and we got to hope for better, guys. I mean, it has been a weird year and a half. As we've been saying, it's been crazy, but we're on the tail end of it, and we have to keep doing our part to get rid of it. I know a lot of people, we were talking before about, people getting vaccinated. I know a lot of people don't like to get vaccinated or whatnot. The reality is, guys, I'd much rather get a needle in my arm than be on a ventilator. That is what it comes down to, but reality is, guys, we're at the tail end of it, and we just got to keep doing our part, which, as I say, please wear a mask, wash your hands, and please
Absolutely. Yes.
I know we're near the end, guys, but it doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna have a great time. We're not going to talk too much about COVID today because we want to think past COVID, because, theater is on the rise and it's starting to start up, guys. So, on the Little Thespian Podcast, we're all about positivity and what is to come with theater and the arts. So the first question, as per always on the Little Thespian Podcast, how exactly did you get into theater, the arts?
Oh, that's kind of a story within itself. Ever since I was a little kid, I kind of enjoyed the concept of performing, I think. Like back in elementary school, like we used to do like those little night events of like singing songs from a certain musical or whatever like that to perform to the parents. I always kind of found that a bit interesting. And then high school, I kind of dropped it. High school, I think I went a lot more into the direction of sports. Like I was a big hockey player. I was a lacrosse player. It was only toward, I want to say, the tail end of high school that one of my teachers at the time kind of pushed me into the direction of theater because they said I was good at it. And, being a high school kid, you're not exactly, what's the word I'm looking for? Reassured in your abilities. So it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't know. my father is a peacekeeper on the reserve. That's a police officer, but it's a different terminology for a police officer on the reserve. And so my brother was also training to be one, so I figured I'd do that. And then eventually I had enough teachers kind of come to me and put their foot down and say, no, you need to try this. So I did. I applied to Dawson College's professional theater program and John Abbott theater program. Sadly, I didn't get to hear back from Dawson, but I think within like a week or 2 weeks, I got a message from Abbott telling me to go do the audition. With that, I told the teachers that told me to basically apply, and they basically sat me down. They said, here are these monologues that I think you'd be good at. One was, I think, from Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie, if I remember correctly. And then the other one was Hamlet, which is, kind of a lot to put on a new actor, I guess you can say. But, I did it. And the fabulous Terry Donald, now an alumni teacher of John Abbott College, liked what I did and took a chance on me, and off I went.
Honestly, that's an incredible story, man. I never knew that. Yeah. But it's good. I mean, thinking of Terry now, I mean, Tennessee Williams is one of his favorite playwrights. So
yeah,
it's crazy to me that like a lot of people have similar stories of they were doing something else and then theater just came out of nowhere. Arts just came out of nowhere. I know I was in the same boat. Yeah. I was doing sports, not even thinking about theater or drama or whatever. It was class for me, right, in high school. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, it's kind of cool. And then slowly did the same thing. Yeah. Dawson and Abbott took me.
Yeah.
Dawson didn't even reply, right? So it's ironic.
Yeah, I think the arts, unless you like truly love it from a young age, it's really hard to get into, especially in those like formative years, like when you're 16, 17, 15ish, like you're so like worried about what people perceive you as during school. Like you don't want to be known as like the theater kid, quote unquote, or like the big dramatic kid. But once that bug like bites you, it's really hard to get it off, right?
Exactly. And I mean, this is a question I always ask on here, but there's a lot of people, like you said, that are scared to like have that reputation to be that arts kid.
Yeah.
But like, do you have any words of wisdom for someone that may want to jump into it, but is just scared to do it?
The best thing I can say is just take a chance on it. Honestly, like, it's hard. There's, especially when I was in high school, like there was definitely a sort of guise or a mask I put on during there, because I did like the idea of performing, but it was always I can't, because then people are going to look at me differently, and I want it to be cool, quote unquote, but cool is whatever you want it to mean. Like, and if doing what you enjoy and then being a bit more public with it just feels a bit more freeing, and in the long run it just helps you instead of having to kind of bottle it up.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that, because we tend to, subconsciously, a lot of people suppress their emotions, right? And theater just allows us to, throw all that out onto the stage. Yeah. No matter what production you're a part of, it's a comedy, tragedy, whatnot, you're helping yourself just by doing it. And, you got to play many, many roles that were different, very different. You actually got to play in A Midsummer's Night's Dream, of which I want to talk about first, because my God, that production, man, from start to finish, I loved it. I'm a huge Shakespeare fan. But I definitely want to talk about your experience with the mechanicals, because that was hilarious and so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
So how was your experience in A Midsummer's Night's Dream?
Midsummer Night's Dream, I have to roll it back because that's been almost 4 years now. I remember it being very fun. I remember working alongside one of my close friends, Dusty. I realize I believe you had him on your show. and Corey Weiser and Terry Gennaro and Chance Saray Jones, like all very sort of like high energy, high sort of um, active people, and just like the amount of like ideas being thrown around. And it was so nice to know that Terry was kind of taking what we were putting down and sort of letting us work through it. And we also had like the assistance of Zach Fraser, another amazing educator at John Abbott College, who kind of helped us kind of inhabit these characters a bit more, because with Shakespeare you can be a bit more cartoonish and you can be a bit more crazy, I think, especially if it's something that's so out there like the Mechanicals, who are these characters that they're just trying to do their best. Like they're not they know they're not good at what they're doing, but they're just trying as hard as they possibly can. And no matter how sort of out there they can be, it's very endearing. And I think we brought a lot, and I hope we did the tech service.
Believe me, you did. Everyone that I've talked to about A Midsummer's Night's Dream, they really felt as if you guys were in a whole different world. And I feel like at Abbott, you're thrusted into these amazing worlds just because of the amazing talent that comes out of John Abbott College.
Absolutely.
And I'm not just saying that because we went to it, you know what I mean? It was actually amazing seeing these students, like these students make these things, guys. And it's incredible to me that, people go on to do things like Cirque du Soleil, like doing all sorts of amazing things outside of Canada.
Absolutely.
And we were talking just before about Terry and his legacy. I mean, they were talking about like people sending in videos from across the world, right? Which is nuts to me, but not really surprising because Terry was that incredible at Abbott. You know what I mean? And I didn't even get to have a show with him, but just his amazing presence at Abbott. So I actually wanted to talk to you about how much Terry meant to you and your class as well.
All right. Terry he was very beloved by our class. He's a very interesting character, and he's been in the industry for so long, starting from being in Syracuse University studying acting all the way to working with the Black Theatre Workshop in Montreal, and then coming to Abbott. It's like he's just a well of knowledge, and especially I find that what he taught us, which was a bit more of the Meisner, Hagen sort of older, whatever you want to call method, because method is such a broad term. It's such a great baseline to have as an actor, and he also kind of helps you figure that out for yourself and what it means to what your process is, as he would give us different exercises to sort of help us feel more at home on the stage as well, while also having to connect more closely with our acting partners. And I think that's something that people never really forget.
Absolutely. I mean, he was always, from what I've heard, he was always one to be like you really have to listen, right? It was all about listening. And it's true. I mean, it's technique that I feel like a lot of people need to know. So I mean, if you guys are just going into acting now, this is a perfect note to take from the beginning. Is the lines are important, but listening to what you're hearing and whatnot, it's definitely something that you need to get used to, because I know it's stressful on stage, guys. Believe me, all actors know how stressful it is on stage. Everything is, all together chaos on stage. You have to know all sorts of different things. But listening is probably one of the most important things, because if you can't hear or understand what someone's saying, they're not going to understand it. The audience isn't going to understand it. And overall, you're not going to understand what's happening either. So you kind of need to, listen.
Especially with like, it's not even just listening for your line and cues. It's like like listening for how they're delivering the lines they're saying. What is how are they looking in terms of like their body, like their body and their gestures, because you can play into that, and there's like so many levels that you can do where it's just expanding off a difference on one night to the next. And I think listening is just the baseline for that, and then you can just start to go crazy and the world's your oyster.
Exactly. And I mean, like, it makes the character even more potent. It makes it more believable, right? When you have more ways to play the character off another character, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, guys, so wise. I mean, honestly, we need to, you guys need to take notes. It's definitely a good thing to know. I also want to talk. I want to talk about all the productions you were at Abbott, but the next one I want to talk about, because it was very unique, was Gut Girls. So how was Gut Girls for you, and that alley stage? Because my God, that stage, crazy in the studio.
Right. So Gut Girls was a very large departure from what I was doing at Abbott at the time. It was directed by Tracy Lee Campbell, and I can only shower praise upon the faculty at Abbott. But working with her, and it was her first time directing, so it was definitely a fun process to see how she works, how she wanted us to work through things, and us finding our characters ourselves, because that was a big part of it as well. And like you said, the way we had the show done was an alley stage, which is having basically a long strip be the stage in the middle, and then on each of the flanks is the crowd. So having to not only play to our acting partner, but also to play to these two very different sides of like basically a room. It was kind of fun, and also learning how to do specifically Cockney accents was a little daunting, because I didn't have, acting much. Well, I had training, but I didn't have much what's the word, experience. So it was fun, to say the least.
It's true. Like, if you guys ever need to learn an accent for a show, I think that's the most daunting process you need to go through.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I had to do one for Faustus. I've had to do one for Find Me, and just an English accent. You can Google it as much as you want, but as much as just going over lines and continuously, practicing it in that voice.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely takes time, guys. So if you are going into a show that requires any type of accent, just go over it with a voice teacher. Continue to just go over it.
If you know anybody who kind of has that accent, or if you don't, then just I found finding a specific actor or figure with a high sort of status, it helps a lot. And I think also being able to have your cast members, if they're also doing the same accent, and just sort of learning and bouncing it off of each other, is very, very helpful.
Absolutely. And like, that's the thing, guys. Like, we've said on the show before that, like, no show is a one-man show, right? You all are doing this thing together, so everyone kind of wants to help you, unless they're snobby and whatnot. But usually at school and whatnot, usually people want to help you. So, go and take the initiative for sure. And honestly, man, the two shows that we were just talking about, Gut Girls, Midsummer's Night's Dream, both amazing. But I actually want to talk about the one that we both were a part of, which was In 15 Dogs. How was that as your, last show, or one of your last shows at Abbott, with Zach Frazier? I mean, that was weird, but good.
It's always interesting, because there's a difference between doing a show that's already been done or doing Shakespeare. It's very different from adapting a book, which was the task that Zach decided to take up for this show. And to say that this show is would be a bit difficult is an understatement, because this show there's so many characters. Like, literally in the title there are 15 dogs, each with their own stories, and to bounce from that, and then there are other characters, and you're bouncing all across Toronto in which the book is set. It was a bit daunting, and also with that added pressure of it being my last show, your last show in a program, you really wanted to give it your all. But the way that things were sort of handled and done was so much fun, because during the show we didn't have an actual set. We had sort of these planks of these sort of painted planks of wood that we would bring out, actors would bring out on stage, and they would become the scenery for the scene, because there's so much transitions from place to place. And that definitely taught me a valuable lesson in arm strength and in patience. But it was definitely fun, and I know that, especially talking to Zach after, it was a very stressful process for him and us, but I think the end product really showed the hard work we put in, and if he ever does it again, I'd love to be a part of that.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie. At the beginning, we were all we're stressed because we're like, Howard, there's no set. What's going on, right?
Yeah.
But my God, the end product. Look back on it, and all fond memories, right? Even though a lot of pain was happening, a lot of things were going on. Being on all fours, we weren't on all fours for too long. But
Yeah.
the 15 dogs, man, I still don't know how they got through. What was it, 6 or like 9 shows? There was a lot of shows.
Yeah,
But
it was like 6 to 7, I believe.
and like, my God, man, like being on all fours for that long, it just shows the incredible passion that both the cast has, and Zach. I mean, I know Zach was up for hours upon end. You know, he was insane. I mean, a great director and a great guy. But yeah, it truly was a great show, and I can only imagine for you, one of your last shows in professional theater. So yeah, man.
Yeah. I think also it really I was just talking about this with Dusty like a week or two ago, and it really makes you appreciate like the amount of work that your techs go through, especially if it's like doing fast transitions during shows. And it's the one thing I can always say is just appreciate your techs, appreciate the people who build the set, who paint the set, who help make the props, who design the costumes. Always appreciate them, because they are putting 110% in, and if you're not doing the same thing, then it just feels awful, and you can definitely see it in the end result.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, that's the thing. When we, without any of them, right, the show does not go on, guys. It's that simple, right?
Yeah.
And like, the show would never look the same without any of them. So yes, he's so right, guys. Love your texts, because without them, I mean, the show would not exist. You wouldn't be able to be heard. You wouldn't be able to be seen. There's a lot of things that just wouldn't happen. So they're as, if not more important than all the actors that you're with, guys, because I mean, the actors, the cast is important, but the crew is as important, because without them, the show does not exist. So take that as you will. But I also want to talk about, after John Abbott College, professional theater program, you also did Almost Maine with Jason. So how was that ALC production of Almost Maine? I mean, I remember watching that, and incredible.
Yeah. Almost Maine was sort of like this isn't to say anything about the ALC program, but it was kind of like my final sort of refresher on things before I kind of went out into the world of theater. And it truly was sort of kind of a refresher, and it was very fun to kind of work with people who weren't maybe as experienced in theater. And especially with Jason kind of like really allowed that avenue to really allow us to play and figure things out for ourselves, especially with scenes in Almost Maine, because they're not as long as regular scenes. They're kind of more like vignettes. And the fact that you only get this certain amount of time, and you kind of workshop it, and then you have the end result. It was very fun to work on.
I mean, it was great to watch, and I can only imagine. Um, I also had a show with Jason, so I know his directing style is different but amazing as well. Just everyone at Abbott, the whole faculty is incredible.
Yeah.
We've been talking about most of them, but my God, just amazing. I actually want to talk too of about, again, after Abbott. I want to talk a bit about your production company with Dusty. So, can you talk a little bit about your production company and what might be in the pipeline moving forward?
Right. So our production slash theater company slash whatever we end up doing with it, because 2020 really kind of stalled our plans. Our company is called Iota'kernatenion, which means we are storytellers in Ganyugeha. And it's mainly what our entire concept was that we wanted to put on shows by young and up and coming playwrights or collective creations from multitude of sort of artists, and just sort of allow them that space to work on these things and then eventually showcase it, because I know that uh there are a lot of theater companies that are kind of like, they want to bet on the surefire things, and I think that's all well and good, but also we really want to sort of allow people the space to sort of work and break out on their own without having and really have a support system for that. So I think that's that. And then for what we have coming down the pipeline, it's kind of hard to say, honestly. 2020, I always go back to it because it is such a big thing in our lot that happened in our lives. I know that we are retooling this original script we did called Fragments. I know that Dusty has been hard at work, sort of elongating it and putting more detail into it, and really putting a lot of tender love and care into that. I've had one or two scripts I've been sort of sleeping on that hopefully I'll have done before. I want to say the upcoming year, but we'll see what happens with that. But I really just want to try to get their wheels turning again, because we had our Fringe show in 2019, and then things kind of went off from there, and hopefully we want to come back stronger than ever in the later half of 2021 and 2022.
I mean, I can't wait. Fragments, man. I've said it to Dusty, and I'll say it to you. An incredible show, especially, the Fringe is an amazing, amazing thing that we do here in Montreal. And honestly, if you guys ever want to start up a show, the Fringe is the perfect place to start it.
Yeah, not even in just Montreal, also all across Canada. I'm sure there are some in the United States as well. Just look for it. The Fringe is such an amazing place. The people who always run them are so nice, so helping, and especially you're also meeting people from all over. I know for Montreal Fringe, we had people come from the US, we had people come from Saskatchewan. It was just all over the place, and you get to like sort of meet and talk to all these talented people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's honestly like it's just a nice theater community, that you just go and see every summer.
Mm-hmm.
And the place booms here. I know, at least in Montreal, it booms here in theater when it comes to the summer. With Fringe, it's just always crazy. I know this year has been different because of COVID. We can say that with everything because, like we said, COVID's just been impacting everywhere and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the Fringe is amazing. And Fragments, I mean, I cannot wait to see what the new working would be of it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Dusty cooks up, and hopefully I get to showcase some of my ideas further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot wait to see it and hear all about it, man. It's going to be a great time.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we only have a couple more questions left, but I also want to acknowledge, what has been happening in Canada, and I want to talk to you a bit about that because Canada's been,
Right.
it's been fun to say the least. But I want to, talk a bit about what has been happening and what happened with Canada Day this year.
Mhm.
So do you want to say a few words in regards to what's been happening in regards to, the terrible things that we've been hearing more and more about residential schools and First Nations people?
I it's a very big question. I think one of the first things I want to say is, if you know anybody Indigenous in your life, check up on them. I think it's very important that you check up on them, especially during a time like this where people's family members and people's loved ones are who they never saw, who literally were taken from their families and never seen again, are being dug up right now. And it's hard. It's a hard feeling because, and also remember that the people they're probably the children of survivors or the grandparent or the grandkids of survivors, and that's a very hard thing to deal with. I know that there are people I know whose family members are survivors of residential schools, and it's a hard process for them, even them, to deal with because that's a lot. That's a lot to go through, to be ripped away from your family and then be told that everything you've known, everything that you've been taught is wrong and that you should be ashamed of yourself and that we're going to strip it from you and you're going to basically becoming a brand new person. That's crazy. And the fact that the Canadian government for so long was just sort of not looking into it. Of course, they had their apology um, with Stephen Harper, but that only gets you so far. Like the fact that it was it took this long for us to start, finding these bodies and to start being able to grieve. That's the first part, is grieving, and then the second part is finding out where do we go from there. Because I know that we're coming up on almost, I want to say 1,500, I think, children being dug up, and that's only accounting for some in the States. They haven't even started yet, and hopefully they start soon. Like it's such a monstrous thing to think about, and the best thing I can say is educate yourself, check up on if you know anybody Indigenous, on them, make sure they're doing okay, and just learn, listen to what they have to say.
I can add, man. Honestly, you're so right. I mean, it's it's terrible.
Yeah.
Just seeing the numbers continuously go up
Hmm.
and just hearing about it, it makes it's just sickening. There's no other word for it. It's sickening.
Yeah.
And I've been saying for years, it's just how I think, that, I don't get how someone can discriminate against anyone. We're all born the same, guys. We all bleed red. We're all the same. We're all, I don't understand it. I don't,
Yeah.
it's sad. It's
Hmm.
just sad that we need to, talk about this. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're okay. And I'm glad that, we have this out, we have this place to talk about it, because the more people that know this history, the less and less horrible things
Yeah.
happen like this. This is why we learn history, so
Yeah.
we don't repeat it,
Exactly.
right? And to keep sweeping it under the rug,
Mm.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
And I think we're a long ways from doing fixing everything. I don't know if we can, right?
It's a long road to fix it, quote unquote fixing, because I don't it's hard to fix something that's been so
Exactly.
it's hard to close a wound that's been open for so long.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much for talking about that. And it's true, guys. I mean, the world needs to do better. I've
Mm-hmm.
been saying it for years. The world needs to do better. And especially during, COVID, a lot of people now have, found these horrible things that have been happening. And, we need to strive to do better now
Yeah.
that we know these things,
Yeah.
So I actually want to end on a good note. We have two more questions left, actually. I miscounted. So the next one that I want to ask is there any acting things in the pipeline for you moving forward? Because I know now that theaters are opening, maybe there's more things that you're looking forward to acting in.
In terms of things in the immediate, not that I'm aware of. I think I'm just kind of sitting on my hands for now and waiting to see how the wind blows. There's like one or two things that might be going on that I don't think I can disclose just yet. But aside from that, I'm just excited as everyone else is to get back out there and start working in shows and just watching everything sort of bloom again.
I mean, honestly, that's the thing. Like now that these things are starting to open, the opportunities and the agents are probably, so happy because stuff's going to be starting up and they're going to be getting paid. Soon people are going to be getting paid. I cannot wait to see what you're talking about, man, because I know the future is bright. And I honestly cannot wait. And the last question that I actually want to talk to you about is, are there any stories that have really been, catching your eye that you might want to write about moving forward?
Stories like in terms of like the news cycle, or do you mean in terms of like books? Ooh, stories I'd like to write about. Not necessarily. A lot of what I've taken for at least my writing is either experiences or things I notice within sort of the public sphere that I find interesting and I want to expand upon. That, or it's just taking a story I heard about when I was a child and sort of building off of that. I've never been one to sort of adapt news stories or like books. I've never really been much into that, but I'm kind of at a loss here.
Honestly, man, though, it's good that I know the best stories come from, your own experiences. Because it's the most authentic that way, you know what I mean? And I mean, honestly, like I said, man, I cannot wait. It's going to be great to see, Fragments 2 and what's to come with, just your production company and acting in general. Now that, COVID, we keep saying COVID, but it's true. COVID has really been not helping our industry or any industry for that matter. But definitely.
But I do feel like there is I feel like once the herd immunity begins to take hold, I feel like there is going to be sort of an explosion in the arts, and I think we're all sort of anxiously anticipating it. Well, not anxiously, but like just pure excitement, the joy that I know it's going to bring out in people.
I mean, I think that's what it all comes down to, and I think it's the perfect way to end it. We need more joy in the world now that everything has been, dark and gloomy for the last year and a half. And with theater and the arts, this is the perfect jumping off point. Now that stuff is slowly coming to be. So I want to thank you again for being on. And I always shine a light on my guests. And I say this every episode, but honestly, it's going to be hard to shine a light on you, man, because overall, I can just see your passion, your writing. I can only imagine how great it's going to be as we move forward into, after COVID life. And I cannot wait to see the amazing future that holds you, the company, and everything else that's in your life. I honestly wish I can be another production with you because you're so passionate in what you do, and you can see it. And you and Dusty, I know you guys are super close, and I said this to him too. you guys just look for a better future. And I'm so glad that we can talk about, things that hopefully impact the world in a good way. And it's great to have you on, man.
Yeah.
So
thank you for
so
having me. And hopefully I get to work with you in the future. And if hopefully I see anybody who's listening in the future as well, that'll be fantastic. Just let me know and we'll see what happens.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much for being on, and thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. Bye, guys. The lights are off. The curtain has fallen, and it's time to say goodbye. Thank you all for joining us on the Little Thespian Podcast. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to ask, either down below or on any of our platforms. On the next episode of the Little Thespian Podcast, it is a milestone episode. Yes, our big 4-0. We have an outstanding guest joining us. He is an actor, producer, director, musician, and all-around great human being. His name is Jason Howell, and we're going to talk all things Almost Maine, all things Pippin, all things Dr. Faustus, and of course, Mary Poppins. It's going to be a great time, and we're also going to talk all things his time so far at John Abbott College's professional theater program and ALC program. We're going to talk all things our shared time at the college and what is looking into the future for John Abbott College's theater program on the 40th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast with Jason Howell. Thank you all for watching this episode, listening. If you guys want to show some more support, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to us here on YouTube. It helps us out tremendously, guys, so please do your part as we ring in the big 4-0. And I want to thank you all for watching this episode, and thank you so much, Iota'kernatenion, for being on this episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. It was great talking to you, as it always is. And I hope you all cannot wait for our third episode of the Shakespeare Sit-Downs Macbeth, coming to you guys very soon. Thank you all for watching. This has been your host, Matthew Crandall, telling us to always shine bright. We'll see you all on the next Little Thespian Podcast.